welcome back to another episode of the Checkers or Wreckers podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, as always, Carter Leonard. It will be just me this week, as everybody else has things they are attending to, so you will be having only me, for this week. We have a lot to uncover in today's episode, ladies and gentlemen. It is the 26th different installment of the Checkers or Wreckers podcast of its first ever season, ladies and gentlemen. So let's get right into it, shall we? Last week, the 3 National Touring Series of NASCAR made its annual trip to the state of Indiana for Indianapolis race weekend. On Friday night, we had the Truck Series' first ever playoff race of the season at Indianapolis Raceway Park, the 1/4 of a mile oval. I believe that's the length, correct me if I'm wrong, but Ty Majeski was able to pick up his first win of the season. It just seems like Ty Majeski is only able to win when it comes to playoff time. Majeski has now locked himself into the next round of the playoffs, which the Truck Series' next race will come at the Milwaukee Mile, which is not less than 2 weeks from this weekend. So congratulations to Ty Majeski and the whole 98 team at Thor Sport Racing for a pretty solid race for them. Now we move into the Saturday edition of the Indianapolis Road Course, which was the NASCAR Xfinity Series having their double header with IndyCar. It was the Pennzoil 150, and it ended up seeing Ty Gibbs getting his I'm not sure how many career wins in Xfinity Ty Gibbs has now. I believe that is his 12th. Correct me if I'm wrong, because yes, it is his 12th career win in the Xfinity Series. Now, he's been doing a part-time schedule for the Xfinity Series this year, while also contending for the Rookie of the Year award in the NASCAR Cup Series. And he was able to pick up a win in the Xfinity Series this past weekend, even doing a burnout around the track, even though it was probably not the smartest thing to do. And he wasn't allowed to do a burnout on the yard of bricks itself. So that was a pretty interesting post-race celebration to see, but congratulations to Ty Gibbs on a well-deserved victory. It looked to be AJ Allmendinger winning this race, considering that he is in the Xfinity Series and is dominated on every single road course that he touches when it comes to that particular series. But however, it was not AJ Allmendinger's day, and it ended up being Ty Gibbs' first and probably only win of the Xfinity Series this season, but he could go back-to-back this weekend at Watkins Glen as he is entered in that race. Now we get into the Cup Series race, which saw 7 different countries represented in the Cup Series field, something that has never been seen in the NASCAR Cup Series field ever. This was the first ever time to do it, and boy, did we get a very big surprise winner. And it was a Ford driver, but not just any Ford driver, ladies and gentlemen. It happened to be Michael McDowell picking up his second career win and his first of the season, locking himself into the 2023 NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. McDowell has been one of those drivers the past few weeks who have been battling for a spot inside the playoffs, just on points in of itself. But now with this win, especially coming out of road course, which we all know that McDowell has had a road course racing background in the American open wheel racing, he is able to get the job done. Congratulations to Michael McDowell and Front Row Motorsports on picking up this truly surprising win. Now, I wanted to say that I didn't pick Michael McDowell to win. I don't believe anybody in the podcast recording studio picked him either. You could look back at last week's episode. I highly doubt anyone did. But it was a well-deserved win for Michael McDowell as he led the most laps of the day. And yeah, what else is there to say, ladies and gentlemen, as Michael McDowell was able to pick up his second career win in his first of the season. With that being said, that'll do it for the weekend recap, ladies and gentlemen. But since we're on the topic of Michael McDowell and Ford, let's talk about Ford as of late. So far, the past 3 races, it has been a Ford car going the victory lane. So we have to ask ourselves this question. Is Ford starting to hit their stride just a bit? Now, so far this season, now it's not like Ford hasn't been the victory lane at all this season. Joey Logano was able to win at Atlanta, and Ryan Blaney was able to win at the Coke 600. But besides that, Ford has either just been running either good when it comes to teams like Penske, RFK, or Front Row Motorsports, or they are running terrible like a team, for example, Stewart Haas Racing, or all the teams, if you want to be completely honest. But as of late, from Richmond all the way to the Indianapolis road course, Ford is starting to hit their stride when it comes to winning races. We saw Chris Buescher go back to back at Richmond and Michigan, and now we see Michael McDowell winning on the road course. So is Ford starting to become a threat? I want to say they are, but it's not the threats that you would typically think of. See, when I think of Ford dominating back in the day, I automatically thought of either Stewart Haas Racing or Team Penske. Obviously, those are the two. Those were the two really big Ford teams at the time. But now with this next gen car and all the parity that it provides, now Team Penske, they're still one of the top teams. Then you have RFK coming into its own and Front Row Motorsports coming into their own. So it's really interesting to see how Ford is really starting to not necessarily transform, but reinvent itself in a way when it comes to just how good they could be. Not with just the same old teams that we have been accustomed to, but mainly the B tier teams. Because before this whole next gen thing, Front Row Motorsports and RFK Racing, they were just those middle of the pack. But if you had a really good day, they'd be inside the top 10 or even top 15. Now all of a sudden, they're a playoff contending team. So it really, begs the question, what really changed? I really think that it's a perspective standpoint, an owner standpoint in RFK's case, if I should say, or the third reason, that being, a good driver lineup. Drivers that we really didn't think that would be, top dogs in the sport are really starting to come into their own. You have guys like, obviously, Brad Keselowski's a Cup Series champion, but then you have Chris Buescher starting to come into their own. Michael McDowell starting to do things as well, even though he, is roughly at the age of 40 years old. And then you have Todd Gillen, who has been performing very, very solid. And, man, Front Row Motorsports, mainly, they have really had a really big week. They announced that their driver lineups for 2024 would be the same, with McDowell returning to the 34 and Gilliland returning to the 38. And then you go out on Sunday, and then you win the race. Big week for Front Row Motorsports this past week, I will say. But going back on the main topic, if Ford is really starting to hit their stride, yes, but it's not in the way that you would typically think. I think Ford could be a threat in the playoffs if they just keep up the consistency, but we will see what happens. Now moving on to our next topic, ladies and gentlemen, and it's going back to the Indy Road Course race, and I mentioned that there was 7 different countries represented in the Cup Series field. Once again, I mentioned that it was the first time ever in a NASCAR Cup Series race that has happened. Now you had Shane Van Gisbergen, the Chicago Street Course winner, obviously, for Trackhouse. You had Brody Kostecki in the RCR number 33. Kameo Kobayashi from Japan, driving for 2311 Racing. You have Mike Rockefeller filling in for the suspended Noah Gragson, who was eventually released from his contract. You have Jenson Button in the Rick Rare Racing number 15. And then the rest of the field is either American or Daniel Suarez case from Mexico. So, yeah, 7 different countries represented. That is truly, truly something, man. But a lot of people on Twitter saw the performance of the international drivers, and let's just say they were a bag of mixed results. Shane Van Gisbergen finished inside the top 10, who was the highest performing international driver of the day. There was times where you would see Brody Kostecki here and there. Kameo Kobayashi actually got dumped by Ricky Stenhouse Jr. heading into turn 1. Mike Rockefeller, obviously in the Legacy Motor Club number 42, was not doing anything worth noting, considering that it's Legacy Motor Club and it's the 32 and it's the 42 car. Almost said 32. I apologize. And then you have Jensen Button, obviously the 15 for Rick Rare Racing. That's not going to do a whole lot either. So, yeah, to say that it was a really good day for every single international driver would be a complete overstatement. Now, why am I bringing this up? Well, a lot of people on NASCAR social media, Instagram, Twitter, or if you're a really really big boomer, Facebook, they ask themselves this question on if international drivers are considered to be overhyped when it comes to the Cup Series or heading over the NASCAR period. And I thought I would want to give my take on this whole thing because, first of all, I want to say that I really love seeing, the international drivers, from different forms of motorsports come over here to NASCAR, to the States, and, have fun with it. There's been a lot of people that are saying, man, driving a Cup car, man, that's really fun. Shane Van Gisbergen has said it. Jensen Button has said it's fun. Kamea Kobayashi, even though he finished 33rd, he even came out and said, I would love to do it again. So, but going back to the main question is if they are overhyped. Now, I think the reason why a lot of people are asking the question of the overhype is simply because we saw Shane Van Gisbergen go out without any prior stock car experience, go out at the Chicago Street Course and literally win in his debut. Now, we have to discuss something real quick. There are great international drivers. Some of the best race car drivers in the world. Either if you're from America or from wherever the case may be. But I want to state something. If you are gonna see an international driver come into the Cup Series, get a one-time deal, one-time star, especially at a road course, you can't always expect that driver to do 100% well. First of all, and I'm not saying that based on their talent level. I think, let's just say, Brody Kostecki, for example. I've seen some of his V8 Supercar highlights, where he's battling against, his fellow competitors, Shane Van Gisbergen, and the dude is a hell of a wheelman in that series. And then he goes over the NASCAR Cup Series, and a lot of people are really expecting him to do really, really well. It's the Shane Van Gisbergen effect, I like to call it, because, a lot of people assume, oh, well, since Shane Van Gisbergen, since he won in this Cup Series debut, we expect other guys from other international series to do really well in, whatever starts they're going to get. Now, that's not a bad thing to say, but at the same time, we have to understand something about Shane Van Gisbergen is that he actually has a background of street course races. The Australian V8 Supercar Series, yeah, some of their races on the schedule, they run on street courses. So, in an Australian V8 Supercar, apparently to him, it's like a Cup Series car, in some way, shape, or form. I don't know necessarily the ins and out of those types of cars compared to a NASCAR stock car, but, you get what I'm saying. And like I said, Shane Van Gisbergen, he has a background of that. So, he knew street courses better than anyone else in the Cup Series field. So, while it's still a road course, it's not your typical road course. It's an actual street course where it's a lot compact, it's a lot tighter, and there's hardly any room for error when it comes to navigating, down the straightaways or in the turns. It's hard to do. And Shane Van Gisbergen, he knew that better than anybody else. Now, I'm not saying, do I think that international drivers are overhyped a little bit? You know what? I definitely agree with that. But I don't think that we can't, have a decent amount of expectations. I mean, we always hope that, no matter whether it's a guy coming from the Xfinity Series to do a part-time, stint in the Cup Series and see what he can does, or someone all the way across the border comes over and wants to do this, we always wish them the best of luck no matter who they are, because they want to prove themselves that they are, you know, they're worthy of it. You know what I mean? But international drivers, they often, I'm not, like I said, I'm not denying their skill set. Like all those guys that I had mentioned earlier, I think have done amazing things in whatever, you know, motorsport that they originally came from, and that's why they are so vastly, known and known, for all the right reasons. But to say that every international driver is going to come into the Cup Series, do a part-time start, and just completely blow the field out of like smithereen, you know that's not all. That's ludicrous. First of all, because they don't always come from a spec car series, which is basically what the Cup Series is nowadays. I'm not going to sit back and lie about that. But they're also, their skill set is high, but, keep in mind, a stock car is especially a next gen car or any type of NASCAR sanctioned vehicle that you go into, those things are harder to drive. Those things are very hard to drive no matter, who you ask. You can ask some, you know, international drivers prior. They say that it was one of the hardest things they have ever had to do. So to say that every international driver is going to come in and just completely, do well is just, that's not always going to be the case. Granted, it's not a bad thing per se, but, you just have to keep your expectations to a minimum. Now, I think there's hype for all the right reasons. Hype that there is, going to be an international driver because it gets, attention. It really, really does. But you can't always expect them to do what Shane Van Gisbergen does and, go out and win in their first Cup start. That's hard to do by itself, no matter who you are. No matter if, like I mentioned, no matter if you're a guy coming in and doing a part time start, making his first start in the Cup Series, or you're an international driver. Winning in your first Cup Series start, everything has to go in place for you. And Shane Van Gisbergen, obviously, he was the odd one out because he had that type of background. So there is a little bit of overhype. There's hype for the right reasons, and then there's hype for the wrong reasons. So let's always just keep our expectations to a certain minimum when it comes to this. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, on to another announcement. In this announcement, I wasn't planning to. I didn't know this announcement came until late last night after I got off of work, and that is Austin Hill announces a multi year deal extension with Richard Childress Racing to stay in the 21 car in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. So there's a lot of reactions that I had from this announcement. First of all, Austin Hill, has proved his worth in the Xfinity Series. So far, he is, I believe, first or second in points. Him and John Hunter Nemechek have been going at it back, back and forth, with each other for the points lead. Both of them are looking like, championship favorites. So far, Austin Hill is having a career year in the Xfinity Series. He has 4 wins so far this year. He's in the top 2 in points, along with John Hunter Nemechek. And so far, he has also been really, really consistent for for RCR compared to his teammate Sheldon Creed. So I'm liking that Austin Hill is staying with RCR. He says that he loves the culture over there, that he wants to stay there for as long as he can. I'm sure RCR definitely loves him. He loves, Austin Hill is definitely proven to be a wheelman. He loves the Xfinity Series. But my question is that what does it mean by multi-year deal? Like, I was under the impression that since the Colleague 31 car opened up and that Justin Haley, wouldn't be there anymore, I automatically thought, oh, that could be a ride for Austin Hill. I mean, he has the sponsorship, he's doing really well in the Xfinity Series, and I figured, maybe he's ready to take that next step. Maybe he's ready to go Cup racing. I'm sure that he would not mind it one bit. I mean, he's already. And it only makes sense, too, because Austin Hill this year is already making starts for Beard Motorsports in the 62 car, which is basically a third RCR car. But there, I mean, so when I ask myself, what does it mean by multi-year deal? Is he staying from 2024, 2025? Obviously he's going to be returning for the 21 car next year, but what exactly is Austin Hill's planned, so to speak? Like, I want to know what exactly that he has planned in the works. Maybe, now, I have a theory for you guys, and, maybe there's more to this contract than meets the eye. And I'm going to tell you why here in a second. But going back to the colleague racing theory of him driving the 31 car, that was automatically my assumption. I thought that Austin Hill may have been ready. And, there's some times where Austin Hill could, most of his wins have come at super speedway tracks, and there's been some races where he's had really good speed. He's not, he's a very consistent driver, top fives, top tens, stage wins. The dude's able to get it done in the Xfinity series. But I think I know why he is signing a multi-year deal with RCR. If RCR ever plans, which I want to say they might do this when the charter system becomes better for every single team in the garage to afford. When that happens, I think Austin Hill wants to go cup racing for RCR. He wants to stay in a place that he feels comfortable in. I mean, like, it only took me till last night to realize that theory, and I'm just like, yeah, maybe there's more to this contract than meets the eye. Maybe RCR has something planned in the works that we don't necessarily know about yet, and that they want Austin Hill there for it. Granted, they could have made a partnership with Colleague Racing or something like that, but maybe there was something in the cards for Austin Hill there, and just Austin Hill just said, you know what, maybe if I just do this, I'll have a better opportunity at where I'm at. And hell, even Chris Rice even tweeted out, RCR made the official announcement on Twitter. He retweeted the post saying, wait, what? So was there a contract planned for Austin Hill? Was there some discussions behind closed doors that, we didn't know about up until now? And Austin Hill just said, you know what, I have a better deal in the works, and we're going to see how that goes. So this is a very, very interesting thing, because this basically takes out one of my big silly season theories. So if Austin Hill is not going to go to the 31 car, who is? I can't really think of many other names besides Austin Hill. Yeah, I mean, you can say Chandler Smith, but I don't think Chandler Smith is ready. I mean, he's done well so far. I mean, he has a win, but, you have to give him more Xfinity Series time if you want to see him, blossom into a potential superstar for your team. So, in my opinion, you got to keep Chandler Smith in Xfinity for another year. I don't, hell, I mean, both colleague cars are in question as of right now. There's rumors saying that AJ Allmendinger may not want to return to the 16 and Cup Series next year. He may want to go back down the, did I say Cup Series or Xfinity Series? I don't know, but let me rephrase. There's rumors saying that Allmendinger doesn't want to go Cup racing next year. He wants to go back down to the Xfinity Series, where he is dominated, but, I think both colleague cars are in question. The 16, the 31 obviously does not have a driver for next year. That's still up in the air, but the 16 has a lot of question marks around it on if AJ will stay. Colleagues Cup program is definitely having some very big questions as of right now, and this, I automatically, like I said earlier, when the 31 opened up, I automatically assumed, bam, that is an Austin Hill ride. And hell, there was even a video of him after Austin Hill won at Pocono that Chris Rice came over and shook, Austin Hill's hand. So I was just like, maybe that's a sign. Obviously, that's just, me saying that. But, I don't doubt that Chris Rice definitely wanted Austin Hill on their team. Austin Hill, I think, is a great asset. He brings funding. He's a very talented driver. He's not necessarily the youngest of the young guns out there. He's 29 years old. But regardless, Austin Hill is still a very talented race car driver. And I'm glad that RCR is going to keep him because, they seem to really like him. Hill, I assume, seems to be very comfortable, as he should be, because he's winning races. He's battling for an Xfinity Series championship this year. If he doesn't get it next year, guess what? There's always next year, and depending on how many years the multi-year deal is, the year after that. So this is a good move for Austin Hill. Now that I look at it, because I was actually kind of confused. I'm just like, wait, he doesn't want to go cup racing? But then now I look at the bigger picture, I'm just thinking, maybe this is setting up for something special. Maybe Austin Hill could stay in Xfinity for a little bit longer with RCR, have that RCR connection, and then go up to the Cup Series and drive the 33 car. So that's just my theory. Let me know what you guys think of Austin Hill's decision down in the comment section below. Glad to see him back with RCR. I've been a big Austin Hill fan since his Truck Series day. So good luck for the rest of the season, Austin Hill, and good luck on the rest of your future as well. Go get that championship, man. All right, now moving on to our next topic, ladies and gentlemen, and it's regarding the NASCAR video game world. Oh boy, we hardly talk about this side of the NASCAR world on our channel a lot, and it's actually kind of sad if I'm being completely honest, but there is some big news regarding this. It was reported earlier this week that NASCAR is set to end their partnership with Motorsport Games. I can just hear the angels singing from above, ladies and gentlemen. Yes! Yes! It's finally over. Yes. After the complete dumpster fire, and I'm sorry, but I am going to be brutally honest about this game as I possibly can. After the complete dumpster fire that was NASCAR 21 Ignition and almost not having a NASCAR game for almost 2 years now, the partnership with Motorsport Games has finally come to an end. This is some big news for the NASCAR video game world, as now we have some hope. First, it was, I date all this back to, the 2019 season, when 704 Games was still making NASCAR games, the NASCAR Heat Series, NASCAR Heat Evolution through NASCAR Heat 5, which obviously came out with a 2022 DLC set, so that game was still getting updates. And, NASCAR 21 Ignition comes out, which I'll admit I was very, very excited for. But little did I know that it would be a very, very big disappointment amongst the community. And, I feel very sick to my stomach that I paid damn near $50 for that game when I went to get it. Like, I felt so upset. Like, you guys don't even know how upset I actually was. But now we finally have some hope. As NASCAR is once again looking for the next manufacturer when it comes to NASCAR video games. Obviously, according to this one guy's live stream, I forget what his name is that there are some NASCAR games currently in the works. Obviously, if you didn't see a few weeks ago or about a month ago, NASCAR Arcade Rush was announced. Now, it's not your typical NASCAR game. It's obviously, like a Mario Kart style NASCAR game. Think about NASCAR kart racing. I think that was what it was called for the Wii that came out back in like 2009. It's something like that. So it's just a nice little fun game to play, I guess. Pre-order is $50 though. Hell no, I cannot charge that much for. Not charge that much. I cannot pay that much for pre-order. Like, no, you will not catch me lacking like that. But so this is a very, very big deal. And I was actually watching, Black Flags Matters video on the whole, Motorsport Games contract being, discontinued, and NASCAR, while it's not officially public yet, NASCAR is set to make an announcement regarding it within the next few days or even weeks possibly. But I believe the cats are finally out of the bag now, and we do not have to deal with this shitty company anymore. Like, I can hear the angels singing. Now, there is a lot of rumors in the industry regarding on when the announcement of the next video game publisher could be and who can make NASCAR games for the community again. Well, there is rumors out there that September 30th, which is a little over a month from now, there will be a substantial announcement when it comes to the future of NASCAR video games. So that's a rumor for right now. That September 30th is a very, very big rumor as of right now. Um, I don't know exactly, what that could mean. It could mean, a public announcement regarding on who the contract is going to be with. But as of right now, we are free from motorsport games, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so happy right now. Like you guys can't see my face, but you could just picture, and I mean picture, the smile on my face right now. Like it is just immaculate. Like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Now let's move on to our next topic, ladies and gentlemen. And it's regarding a NASCAR Cup Series driver, but it's not just any NASCAR Cup Series driver, ladies and gentlemen. It is none other than NASCAR's most popular driver, Chase Elliott. There has been a big debate for the past several races on if Chase Elliott will make the playoffs. Let's just backtrack for a second before we get into the meat and potatoes of this next discussion. Chase Elliott fans, if you're watching this, you might want to cover your ears because I am about to give my brutally honest opinion on Chase Elliott's season. Some of it's his fault, some of it's not. This season has been one nightmare after another. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. And I don't think that there's anyone or any race fan around me that can really disagree with that. Because, obviously, 2 races in, after you get your first 2 races in of the season, headed into the week of Las Vegas, the weekend of Las Vegas. Chase Elliott breaks his leg in a snowboarding accident and is forced to miss the next several races. He finally makes his return to the 9th race of the season, that being the Spring Martinsville race. Then he does subpar, still trying to get his feet wet again, back in the cup car, And then he goes out and does some of the goofiest shit imaginable, which is intentionally wreck Denny Hamlin at the Coca-Cola 600 back in May. If you hear dogs barking in the background, there's someone knocking on the door. So do not be alarmed. But he goes and gets himself suspended, and he is forced to sit out the next race the following week at Gateway. And he is running subpar, but then he starts picking it up in performance. He starts racking up more and more points as the races go on, but then he finds himself in yet another slump. So, we have come to the point where it's 2 races left in the regular season before the 2023 NASCAR playoffs officially hit in the month of September. So, looking at the playoffs right now, Chase Elliott currently sits. I am going to look up the playoff points as they stand as of right now. Currently, Chase Elliott in the playoff standings sits 19th of points behind Daniel Suarez in 17th, Ty Gibbs in 18th, and the final spot in the top 20 being his teammate Alex Bowman, who also had to sit out for injury. So there's a possibility that 2 Hendrick Motorsports cars, half of the team, would miss the playoffs, while, Kyle Larson and William Byron, they're already locked in based off of wins. But going back to the main topic, that being Chase Elliott, we have 2 races left. That being Watkins Glen this upcoming weekend. And then you have Daytona, which is the following week. Which Chase Elliott has won. I would say he's won at both tracks, but I've reminded myself that he has not won at Daytona as of yet. Now, we are going to a track this weekend that Chase Elliott is no stranger to victory lane. He ended up getting his first career win there back in 2018, then following up with another win in 2019. So, Chase Elliott has, obviously, he's a big road course guy, and this could be a weekend where Chase Elliott could make the playoffs on a win. But there's always that but. If Chase Elliott were to not just have Chase Elliott could have a top 5 in that race. But let's just say, for example, that Chase Elliott does not do well in this race. I think you could wave playoff hopes bye-bye. Now, I'm not saying that Chase Elliott is not a good super speedway racer. I'm not saying that he doesn't have the capability of winning at Daytona, but knowing how chaotic it can get, it's the final race of the season. Everyone's looking for that playoff spot, including drivers who aren't even in the top 20 in points. We got to look, chaos is going to strike. And if Chase Elliott's in the middle of that, there's a good chance that he's going to miss the playoffs. Hell, even last year, see, this situation is kind of similar to Martin Truex Jr.'s playoff situation last year. Now, obviously, Truex didn't have to sit any time out. He did run the whole 36-race season. But what I mean is that we all figured that Martin Truex Jr. would, point his way in, get himself into the playoffs, but he never did. We were all expecting him, because, he's a former Cup Series champion. We were all expecting him to get in. And then all of a sudden, Daytona comes and, the regular season comes and goes. We get to Daytona, and then that doesn't happen. Granted, he got caught up in a wreck, but then again, we all predicted it would happen. So even a really, really good driver, like Chase Elliott, like Martin Truex Jr., has a possibility of missing the playoffs. But now but this is about Chase Elliott. Now, Chase Elliott, I think, is a really, really good road course racer. He could probably get it done this weekend. But, at the same time, though, if I'm betting on anyone in the Cup Series garage, to go out at Watkins Glen this weekend, and win, I'm not so sure if I'm going to put Chase Elliott in my top 5. And I'll tell you why. I know a lot of these Chase Elliott fans are going to come at me saying, oh, you don't know shit, this, and that, But here's what I mean by this. Like I said, it's been one nightmare after another when it comes to the 9 team. Chase Elliott, Alan Gustafson, Eddie DeHaan, it's just been one nightmare after another, man. Like, you just can't seem to really get a break from, all the shit luck that Chase Elliott has had to go through. Whether it's, being injured, getting suspended, it's just been hell, man. It's just been utter hell. That's all I got to say. It's been utter hell for Chase Elliott, and quite frankly, it's honestly quite sad. So, I love seeing the best race car drivers in the world go at it, and I definitely think that Chase Elliott is one of the best drivers in NASCAR. But at the same time, if he doesn't, make the playoffs, I can't really say that I'm going to be really surprised because, he's, that injury basically ruined his season. It basically ruined the season, because taking time, stepping away from a race car or any sport for that matter, it's gonna lead to some negatives. It's gonna lead to some, horrible momentum, not great, results, and that happens sometimes. Now, but the only time that I can really remember someone, missing time and, coming back and just completely killing the field was Kyle Busch in 2015 when he had his leg injury to start the season. He missed the first 11 races to start the year. Granted, the point system was kind of different, how you had to be in the top 30 in points in order to, get into the playoffs. Now, all of a sudden, it's every driver. Every driver could get into the playoffs, no matter what position you're running in points. Hell, BJ McLeod in that 78 car, he could luck his way into a win and be in and have a playoff spot, dude. Like, it is, it's amazing to me how, that works. So wrapping up this topic for for right now, I just think that you know that's a tough spot if you're Chase Elliott because I think this weekend and this weekend in particular, where you're going to a track where you have a lot of success at, this is going to be do or die time because you know like I said, I look at Daytona. I haven't said this yet, but I always look at super speedway races as if a 50-50. Either you're going to have a good finish, you're going to come out with a clean car, or you're not. You're going to have a bad finish, or you're going to end up wrecking. But with Watkins Glen, the chance, the odds of him getting the victory lane are more and more, you know, feasible. If I had to pick a word, they're more feasible, because, like I said, he's a road course winner, this and that. But yeah, like I said, for Chase Elliott fans and for Chase Elliott himself, it's do or die time, man. Adam, I know you are, Adam Schwab. Obviously, he's not here right now, but Adam, buddy, man, it's been a tough season for him considering that he is a big fan of the 9 car, and he has said on multiple occasions that he just wants this season to be over with, and quite frankly, I honestly can't blame him. I mean, the season and the results speak for themselves. That's all I have to really say about Chase Elliott on if I think that if he'll make the playoffs or not. Now let's get into another topic, ladies and gentlemen, that I wasn't really planning to add into the show today, but I figured it'd be cool to talk about it. And it is regarding something to do with Netflix. According to Adam Stern, NASCAR is in advanced discussions with Netflix to have this season's playoffs docu-series aired on the streaming platform, per sources, and what could be a notable boost for the racing property. Obviously, you saw last year that NASCAR tried to do, this race for the championship thing on USA Network. It didn't even make it past like 5 episodes. Correct me if I'm wrong, because it was just not. The ratings were okay, to say the least. Like it wasn't really, it wasn't really that great. But you have a multi-billion-dollar company, Netflix, in discussion. NASCAR working with Netflix. Obviously, Netflix, when it comes to motorsports, we all know how popular they are with their Drive to Survive series with Formula One. How popular of a series that's been. How it's been, how it's captivated the American audiences. Made F1 in America more and more popular by the year. But with NASCAR entering Netflix, this is possibly a really big boost because it can. I'm not saying it's really going to regain the popularity or the mainstream popularity that you saw in the early to mid 2000s when NASCAR was in its, big booming period, but it could boost some form of relevancy. I'm not saying NASCAR is not relevant as of right now. I mean, with international drivers coming over and NASCAR doing some really big things, a lot of good things, and sometimes not so very good things. We have to look at the positives have to outweigh the negatives, and this right here, I wouldn't call it an Adam Stern bomb or however you want to call it, but this is big. If NASCAR is able to get a deal done with Netflix to post a documentary series, I cannot talk right now, about the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs, which obviously a lot of people have varying opinions over, but it could show how big, the NASCAR world truly is, and it's not just some, it's hillbillies going around in circles. No, obviously not. The sport is so much more than that. It's it's the test man and machine. So if NASCAR is able to get done with Netflix, man, NASCAR has actually had some really big W's as of late because NASCAR actually posted on their website a couple days ago that of this new thing called NASCAR Classics, where you can view all the old school races, how many old school races that you want, and NASCAR's classic website would be having those races on there for you to watch. We're talking like races from like the early 1950s when NASCAR is racing on the beach at Daytona to 2023. Man, it is very cool how NASCAR is doing that for their 75th anniversary. I hope that is there to stay. I hope that it's not just a one-time thing. Then you have cutting ties with motorsports games, and now you have this. You have the whole Netflix deal possibly going down. NASCAR has been taking not just W's this week, but a lot of W's as of late, because the sport is really trying to reinvent itself, and quite frankly, it's amazing to see. Hell, there's been a lot of kids at my school, who know that I'm a NASCAR fan, and they've just been like, they brought it up a few times, and that's something that I wouldn't have, heard, for back in like 2, 3, even 4 years ago. So like the relevancy of NASCAR is starting to grow back. It's starting to, go back up again. Quite frankly, I'm very excited to see, what other things the sport has planned in the future. Not just, for racing and, racing or drivers wise, but just, fan aspect things. You know what I mean? Just like, and this is one of them. This is obviously one of them, man. So yeah, I hope this docuseries isn't something cheesy per se. I hope that they capture that Drive to Survive audience, because we need that. We need that sort of popularity in the sport right now. Well, ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, we are at 47 minutes and 16 seconds into this episode, which means we are winding down. I know it's not a very long episode today, but we have pretty much gotten through every single topic that we need to cover. So now we get into race picks, ladies and gentlemen. The NASCAR Xfinity Series and NASCAR Cup Series make their annual trip to upstate New York to race at Watkins, Glen this weekend, ladies and gentlemen. So for the Xfinity Series race this weekend at Watkins Glen, I have looked through the field and I'm going to give my pick. I would have picked AJ Allmendinger to win this race, but considering that he is not driving the 10 Kaulig car, that is actually Kyle Busch driving the 10 car. Obviously, Kyle Busch has made part-time starts for Kaulig and Xfinity this year. So, my pick to win the Xfinity Series race this upcoming weekend. This is definitely a tough one considering that AJ Allmendinger is not in the field, but for my pick, I am going to go with Cole Custer. The dude's just good on road courses, so I'm just going to go with him. Cole Custer, as of right now, he currently sits, I believe, 4th or 5th in Xfinity Series points, and both of his wins have come on road courses. Obviously, one being, Portland's wacky finish, which he got by Sheldon Creed and whoever he was battling with. I don't even remember the finish now that I think about it. And then you had the rain-shortened race at the Chicago Street Course. So far, Custer has had insane luck on road courses this year, so why not give him another road course win? So, yeah, Cole Custer to win. Now we get into the Cup Series race, ladies and gentlemen. It is the GoBowling.com at the Glen. That is the title race sponsor. And didn't really take a long time for me to look at this race and pick and think of who I think is going to win. Now, I am going to go with the Hendrick Motorsports driver, but it is not Chase Elliott, ladies and gentlemen. I am going to go with his teammate who has won the last 2 Watkins Glen races, and he's about to go 3 in a row, and he has been hungry for a win since the month of April. Ladies and gentlemen, please give me Kyle Larson to win this race. That is my pick, ladies and gentlemen. I am picking Kyle Larson to win the Cup Series race this weekend at Watkins Glen. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below on who you think is going to win. Thank you guys for another episode of the Checkers or Wreckers podcast. That'll do it for this week's episode 26. Ladies and gentlemen, like I said earlier, we are getting down the playoff time, ladies and gentlemen, as after this weekend, we only have one more weekend of regular season racing for the NASCAR Cup Series. Obviously, the Xfinity Series, their playoffs don't start until after Kansas. They start real late, obviously. But, Yep, we are getting down the crunch time, ladies and gentlemen. So, thank you guys so much for watching this week's episode of the Checkers and Wreckers podcast. As always, this is your host, Carter Leonard, and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.